Hello, everyone. Welcome to Educational Norm. Today we have Danielle Esposito from Elyria Catholic High School. I had the privilege of meeting Danielle through my work with Vincent as their subcontractor. And I was supposed to be just doing technology there and filling out a contract, but now I've been there for 3 or 4 years, I think, 4 years now. And Danielle is one of the hardest working people in that building when it comes to teaching and being with kids and doing what's right for kids. So, welcome, Danielle, to the show.
Hi, thank you, Norm. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I am a fan of you, but I'm not a fan of your poster behind you with
I
Pittsburgh on it.
know. I'm gonna blame my husband on that. I'm in his office, and he's diehard Steelers fan, and so
How's he coping with today since we
yeah,
are
I didn't ask. He's been shut up and doing work all day long. So
nice? Well, since this won't air until January, this is the day after the Browns beat the Steelers 13-6. So I wanted to make sure we clarify. Not that I really cared about the game, right?
no,
So anyway, Danielle, it's great. I'm glad you agreed to do this with me. I really do appreciate the work you do and how hard you work at what you do with your craft and making sure that you're doing what's best for kids and also best for teachers. You're on it, sister.
you make it all sound so great, but the crazy thing is like this is just innate, I guess, in a way where I just do what I'm doing, and because it's the way I feel it should be carried out. So. It's funny to hear that when it's just something normal, I guess that.
Your normal is not normal for everybody. So let's just go there. So I don't want to give too much about your story away, but we are going to be talking about mapping the curriculum, which is not the favorite topic of everybody. But and I wouldn't even say it was the favorite topic of yours to begin with. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got where you're at.
So I am in I believe it's my 15th year in the Diocese of Cleveland. I did 4 years of teaching right out of college at Cleveland Central Catholic, and then I moved over to Elyria Catholic. So all sciences, biology has been my bread and butter, and then now anatomy and physiology. And I'm the department chair here for the last like 5 years, I think. Um, and then I transitioned this year to teach physical science again, which I haven't ventured into in the last 10 years. And so that was a really big challenge. But as we were talking about how we wanted this course to look and our goal, I felt that I needed to kind of step in and try to facilitate some of that. If I was going to bring about a lot of these changes, I wasn't going to just stick them on somebody else to do. So
Well,
that
that's
has
good
been.
leadership on your part. You don't have to delegate everything as a leader.
Yeah.
Um, so going into that role with the physical science, I know that that's why we started talking about mapping because
Yeah.
you have a couple people that are doing physical science and you wanted that consistency. And also you saw things that of your students that were coming in that needed to be addressed. So share with what you saw in the curriculum and decided why we needed to do the map together.
Sure. So as the department chair, one of my responsibilities is to do freshman placements. So our incoming freshmen, I take a look at their MAP scores, their entrance exam scores, and grades from the grade school. And then I place them in whatever class just based on the data I have that I feel would be best suited for them. Whether it was at that time, biology was our standard freshman level class, and then the top 25% went into honors biology, and the bottom 25% we felt needed some additional help before entering into biology. So we had that as our physical science course. And over the last couple of years, that number of physical science classes has grown just based on what our kids are coming in already prepared to do. Last year, I believe we had 3 sections of it, which was the largest that we had. And so that kind of helped bolster our shift to say, I think it would be advantageous for us to make this our freshman level class, redesign it so it wasn't um, remediation, but elevated and still give them the skills that they could have to succeed in the biology, chemistry, physics. Another component was a lot of our kids are not taking these upper level classes. So I'm seeing an increase in our students at the senior level, especially who are opting not to take a fourth year of science or are opting to take like a CCP over a physics or AP Chem, something like that. And so trying to make these concepts a little bit more attainable and not so far out of their reach that they can do this with some of this background. So that was kind of our goal that I brought to admin to say, hey, can we make this shift and can we work on this curriculum redesign to make it what it should be, um, and kind of elevate it up a little bit. And so that's where we started.
I love the fact that you're not just going with status quo. You're really thinking about what your kids need and how that's going to impact their future. One of the things that I know we've talked about before is that what kids come in with because you're a private school it varies wildly because of the school that they attended prior. And without naming names, of course, um, what kind of range are you seeing with the science skills and how much remediation do you feel is needed?
Well, so we have at least, and I'm gonna get this number wrong, we have at least 9 different feeder schools. I I know the number's higher. I want to kind of go on the high end of that, but ranging from private to the public system within Elyria. So we're the only Catholic high school in Lorain County, and we get a wide range of students. So I have some that are, um, in their class, they are excelling in honors biology, and they could go for another challenge. And then I have others who are reading very, very low. And need a lot of additional support outside of just a gen ed teacher. So trying to reach all of these kids in some facet has been a big struggle. Um, the I guess the biggest the foundational skills overall are hard for these kids in sciences. So being able to read graphs or data tables and basic things that I think we as teachers that have been in this for so long take for granted. Oh, they've gotten this in eighth grade, seventh grade, sixth grade. I don't need to hammer the scientific method over and over, but they just aren't there. And so we're seeing that not necessarily in their freshman class, but as they're moving up into chemistry or physics, and those teachers are trying to push and go to their content level, and they can't get there because they have to come back down to what's an average
Right.
or some of these math skills that, you're like, ooh, what happened here? So, um, that's kind of, we wanted to infuse the physical science class with a lot of these foundational science skills that they could then carry. So, um, as kind of a catch-all.
With that being said, the foundational skills are something that need to be taught every year anyway, but the emphasis on that really falls in that freshman year in a high school. Like, and if you don't get it there, you're not going to get it.
Mhm.
And that's really, really hard. There's a lot of pressure on a freshman level course to not only do the content, but all the foundational skills. And I would say the shift has been since we got into the high stake testing of language arts and math because the elementary schools aren't pushed as hard to do social studies and science,
Mhm.
where that base may have been set up years ago. Now it's maybe pushed down the road and, oh, they'll get it next year. So
Mhm.
I think that's part of what you're seeing.
Right. And it's interesting. One thing I'm going to attempt to do in January is administer the MAPS science test that we've never done. Just to kind of see where are we at? Like we don't have a science test that we can look at to see what specific skills do we need to really focus on. I could tell you in my own classes what kids need what, but it'd be nice to see that overall trend and be able to hit it purposefully within something.
I think that's a good idea. Data will reveal what you probably already know, but it's good to know for sure. So you went to administration, you say, hey, we'd like to do this map for the physical education. Don't, you're not doing physical education
No.
for physical science. And so they said, well, let's bring Norm in and let's have that conversation. So I'm going to have you talk about that first meeting that we had back in that room with you and the two other teachers that were there. Just sort of recap how you were picked and the process that we started that day.
Sure. Because I was spearheading the whole thing, obviously, I was in on that. One of the other teachers was also teaching physical science, had been teaching it at that remediation level for a couple years, and so, and is currently teaching it alongside me this year. So we wanted to bring her in as kind of the content expert, as I am more life science based and hadn't been in that realm in a long time. And then the second teacher we brought in was or is a chemistry teacher. And so having physical science, biology, and chemistry kind of all, okay, what's important, what do we need in these first three um, kind of big core classes that could translate and kind of do a mini vertical alignment. We didn't have the whole department, but enough to get us started on conversations on where should we focus on some of this. What are they covering in chemistry that maybe we don't need to hit as hard in physical science, but that they have an introduction to it. So she was able to kind of really give us that insight, which was nice.
Hmm. And she's a
Um,
new teacher, newer teacher to Elyria
yes.
Catholic. So it's also good just to have her on the ground floor.
Correct. And she came from a middle school, like an elementary school, so she had that base knowledge of what should they be coming in with, or what did she teach in that realm that then could set us up to kind of, okay, maybe we need to hit this part a little bit harder because they didn't get to it for whatever reason. Um, and so like we had all kind of talked about it, and then that first meeting, I just remember being completely overwhelmed, I think, after that first meeting because you curriculum mapping is such a monster of a thing. And then like you said, it's so funny that it wasn't my favorite thing, but I could think back now that I enjoy doing this kind of thing because it's like a big puzzle
Right.
and it's very organized and you know how I like my tables.
Yes,
So
you do.
at the end, and then you feel a sense of accomplishment that I've made something that is, you know, purposeful and authentic and good. So hopefully. Um, but yeah, we sat down and I think the first thing you had us do was figure out, okay, well, how many teaching days do we have to work with? And I had never before done that where I looked at our school year and kind of mapped out, okay, well, how many actual teaching days do we have in each of these quarters? And then dividing up our standards based on that. So that was kind of eye-opening, and I know that's probably not new for a lot of people. Backwards planning should be what it is, but um to see the number, I think that's what it was, just to see that number overall, um, and then know that this is all you have to work with. So figure out how you can fit the standards in with this finite number, because you don't get an extension on it. So
Right, right.
um and so that was kind of I think where we began and looking at, okay, well, how I think the next piece was talking about what would maybe our assessments kind of look like. Is it going to be more traditional, or would we be doing something more project based, or how would we be assessing? Because that would kind of help determine the number of days
Hmm.
that we could spend on a particular thing.
Well, as far as the days go, that was an evolution from when they started testing, in April, March and April, and the teacher's like, well, we don't even get to the end of our curriculum in time. So we had to start looking at, well, what should we have accomplished before the testing? So that's how that whole idea came about. And it just makes sense because we know though you have days, especially
Mhm.
during Catholic Schools Week,
Mhm.
where there may not be a lot of teaching going on with new
Mhm.
material. So, Halloween for elementary schools, oh my goodness. I mean, there's just no
Yeah.
way that's going to happen on a high scale. So I call it a heat map of where those things will be taught and how they can be taught versus I know there's 180 days of school, but really, how many
But really,
days
there's
are there?
not.
No,
Yeah.
it narrows down pretty quick. So I'm glad that that was a big part of that discussion, just because it is sort of eye-opening for anybody
Mhm.
involved. What
Right.
I have to say is that you and your department took the step that many people won't. After our first meeting, you went back and you worked more to figure out what this should look like. And I know how hard you worked between our meetings because we only met 3 times
Right.
and
Right.
we mapped out the whole thing
Yeah.
in those 3 times. But that's why I want to talk about what kind of work did you do between the sessions that we held together?
So, we did our heat map and realized just how many days we could divide and lump together some of our standards. So, um, maybe not all of them were individually 10 days or whatever it was. So, what could we group together and in what order did we want to do it? Um, And because I had a resource there who had taught the class before and had activities, we kind of were trying to figure out, okay, really based on the past year, what did you feel took the longest? What did they need most help with? Where could we kind of move from there? And what activities did you really like that you would want to carry over into this year? Um, and we kind of started brainstorming some of what those activities could look like, which led us then into that conversation of that capstone project to end the year with a culminating, unifying project to show all that the students had accomplished throughout the year of physical science. What would that look like? And so we tossed around the ideas. I know we had developed a couple in that first meeting, but then I think through that interim time, we really narrowed down how we wanted that to look because I was so unsure of going that route. I was not sure I wanted to tackle that this first year. But really it made a lot of sense. And so um, what we are developing, what we developed our whole curriculum around was this Rocket to the Stars project. And uh, the kids are working in small groups throughout the year to design, build, and test a rocket that we will launch to, fingers crossed, a star of their choosing as we end the year on the universe. So,
Nice.
um, it like nice and neat in a bow just delivers that. And so we kind of kept that in the back of our head and looked at how we wanted to approach the year, and with the lab experiences and things like that. So we just had a lot of more um, individual, I guess, like focused conversations on components that we knew we wanted to keep within the curriculum. So
That
yeah.
that's a good explanation because when I came back the next time, you had so many thoughts down and a binder of organization ready to go. Um, and that's where I think that those individual conversations become so valuable because you are talking very specifically about how we're going to do this and what's best for kids. Now, as we stated, the mapping process is a bear. I mean, if the traditional way of mapping has been something that I've done as a teacher and administrator, and it's never fun. It's a lot of work. But we have found the storyboarding method of mapping, which I want to say is easier, but it's still the same content, which is crazy. So talk to me about, and this is from Alison Zamunda, and I always forget the other author's name. I'll find it. I'll put it up on the screen when when it's time. Um, but tell me your first reaction when you heard of the storyboard method of mapping.
Um, so I think it was again, I think it was just overwhelming. I didn't know where to start with it and like what would this actually look like. So I don't do a lot of like free range project kinds of things because it's hard for me to quantify, I think, what is mastery of that particular topic or standard. What does
Spoken
that look
like a true
like?
science teacher.
Right, right. So, I mean, I do projects, but it's this is a whole different thing, right? So, the storyboarding it made sense in that it flowed. Everything had to connect and flow together, and understand that. I think when I had taught physical science 10 years ago, it was everything was in a separate little unit. I did physics stuff, I did chemistry, and I did universe, and they were separate. But really they aren't. They are very much entwined, and you can make them that way. And the idea to can make a continuous learning experience for the students, to have them have something to identify with and be able to associate concepts with a little bit easier. That they weren't just standing alone was important. And it makes a lot of sense. From the student perspective and the teacher perspective. It was getting to that point though that was hard because it was okay, well, how do we figure out what's the learning standard? What are the success criteria? What is that going to look like? All wrapped around one continuous target, right? I needed one area to shoot for.
Right.
That's what it was hard.
Well, I think we missed a step in that process because we were all also familiar with the teacher clarity playbook,
Hmm.
which is where we based a lot of our lesson progression and learning intentions and success criteria. Without that as a precursor, I don't know
Hmm.
how easy this would have gone because it would have been we well, but that's the beauty of us working together for 4 years. We did speak the same language. So if it wasn't that, we probably had something that was in our background that we could have fallen back on.
Right.
But this definitely made it easy to have that as our guide of how to do these learning intentions and lesson progressions.
Hmm. And to make them
Um,
meaningful. It wasn't just students are going to learn the scientific method, but like, okay, what are they going to walk away with after they take this course? Like, that's what's important, not.
right. And that was the talk. What is the evidence of learning? We talked about that a lot. So you come back and you have this idea that you're playing with a storyboard, and we'll get into the details of what's on the storyboard here shortly. But we got to the point where we were comfortable with the learning progression and what's going to happen basically at each one of those stages.
Mhm.
And then I know one of the stages you had to go through outside of our meeting is what's actually going to fill that time.
Mhm.
So talk about that process because a lot of people think when we were mapping, we're also throwing out a lot of stuff. It's really not that.
No, throwing out like the science standards itself.
No, like the lessons that you taught in the past.
Oh, no.
That always scares teachers like, oh, we're starting something new. I got to start over. And that's not the case. You can use things that you've done in the process. So talk a little bit about what you kept and what you may have added over that conversation.
Right. So we did take a look at what was already being done in the physical science. The problem, I think, or I don't want to say a problem, but one of our hurdles was that the materials that were being used were for middle school rather than high school. So that is where one of these changes needed to take place in which we needed to elevate and bring it up to grade level standards. So we still were able to utilize a lot of our veneer labs and things that the teacher that was teaching the course said these are really valuable. So we utilize those. We some resources for how we wanted to deliver the content. Um, but it wasn't all creation from scratch. It was pulling pieces that were valuable that we could elevate back up, that it wasn't just a scratch all.
Like I said, I think one of the scary pieces for teachers, not only is this usually a bear, but they feel that with any change, they're going to lose what they currently do or what they've been working on for years. But the idea of keeping what's effective and what works has to be part of that conversation. It's not throw out everything and we start brand new. You have 15 years of experience. Let's use that. And any activity that fits in there, let's take it for what it's worth and make it work for our kids.
Yeah, I would think if anything, it was an eye opener of what is really important, and are we doing too much of one kind of thing where we only need maybe one or two rather
Mhm.
than four or five. So we could accomplish the same task but not drag it for quite as long.
Well,
Um,
and with your idea that the storyboard is a continuous story, you can always cycle back to those things that need to be touched on again and make it part of the lesson if needed. And that's something that we also talked about. Just what's those foundational things that has to be touched on throughout the year, and how's that going to look?
yeah. Yep.
So, with all that being said, let's talk about the actual storyboard, and then I want to talk about the capstone because I'm excited about your capstone. Um, what's the physical look of your storyboard and how are you using it?
Ugh. Uh, the Matrix.
Yes.
So, the Matrix was a lot of fun, I think, to kind of this is where you could be a lot of like really creative with it, right? So you have your story and then it's like you really are weaving in the story, trying to fit everything together. So we needed to come up with kind of like a one pager that we could give um to parents or anyone, admin, whomever, that would describe what is our goal for each of the quarters and what are the overall um, intentions, I guess, learning intentions, or how are we going to know that these students have been successful for each of those? We just broke it down quarter by quarter. I'm trying to look at it, my
Well,
curriculum.
you had themes in each one of the quarters,
Yes. So, the overall physical science theme was Rocket Man launching into physical science.
and we talked about Elton John.
Yes, we did. And so then the name had to stick, and it was fine. And then for quarter one, we focus on force and motion, and we are weaving that around the countdown to the launch. So looking at how these forces all interact together, and then beginning to understand the engineering process and their role in developing their rockets. And in quarter two, they're building the rocket as we study matter and what combination of materials and reactions would be beneficial into fueling their rocket. Quarter three focuses on energy and waves, and it's powering the journey, so wave properties and communication and exploration. And then quarter four is the universe, so navigating the cosmos is what we termed that as we study stars. And then they eventually, like I said, we'd be picking a star, and figuring out all of the different like distance and speed and interweaving everything to reach that star. So
I just love, again, we got sidetracked a few times with Elton John. I just say that wasn't 100% pure science talk that whole time, but it was something that as we were talking, the excitement just kept growing with the teachers that were in the room
mm,
about how this is going to look and ideas. I think that's why I like the process is once people buy in, the ideas just start flowing. And it's like we almost have too much. We have to pare it back to make it all work. So that's the part I really enjoy is just saying a few words and then just letting you guys go and have that discussion is so much fun for me. I don't know how much fun it was for you, but it was for me.
it was. I think I have been immersed in this for, since our first meeting. Because not only did we write the curriculum then, I through another course I was taking for certification, was looking at integrating STEAM components into this. And so the rocket project, capstone project, has been my focus then through that whole graduate
Nice.
class. So it's just to watch it kind of grow and really become tangible is really cool. So yeah, this is really like a love of labor or labor of love, whatever you want to say.
Well, it's funny because I actually wrote the word STEAM on my sheet because I met with your STEAM coordinator last time I was there.
Okay.
That's why I didn't meet with you, but I met with him and we were talking about how can he get more involved in different classrooms. And I said, have you talked to Danielle? Because I know that this is going to work out well. So that's great. So the capstone in and of itself is the whole piece that pulls everything together. And you've given glimpses through it. But one of the things that we talked about is how do we get kids to work on this for the entire year?
Yeah.
Because we all know, especially freshmen, they are not focused for an entire year on anything. So how are you going about that process to have this capstone work for the entire year? And also, what is that final outcome going to look like in your mind?
So, we just started like three weeks or so before Christmas break on getting them into groups. And then I provided them with a research outline, which had kind of sentence starters and some prompts like questions and things to consider as they research, some background on rockets and what kinds of things would be important to know about them. Um, and I have access to their documents and I'm providing feedback after that meeting. So The goal is that they are going to design, test, and build um, a rocket that they are able to analyze, motion and distance and all that sort of fun stuff, um, integrating all of these components together. So it's a big task, but breaking it down into manageable pieces. What are we going to focus on here? Okay, well then let's make sure we can revise or add another component next. Within this first couple weeks, they really just need to get a handle on what is rocket science. How is a rocket? It's not a paper airplane. How are these things designed and why are they designed the way that they are? And come up with some tentative design ideas that they think might work. Um, and then next it will be, okay, we need to figure out what materials do you want to use and let's start to build something and see is that even worth, exploring any further. I've had several who were asking, can we just use 2 liters and um, Mentos and stuff? I'm like, you can start with 2 liters. You can certainly start with that, and then as we go through, you may want to revise, but it's a starting point. So it's just trying to get them to think outside of the box. That I don't give it to them; they have to come up with it.
And the thing that we touched on was that you have to teach something and then give them time to process that and put it into their product. So then those stepping stones along the way really are laid out by your learning progression that we talked about. And how does that learning progression show itself as evidence in their rocket design and their knowledge? So I think that's a huge part of what we've been talking about is it's going to take time to do this, but they don't have the focus to do it that way. So you have to
Right.
really break it down step by step.
Right.
And it also makes your life easier because then they're not rushing that last minute to try to say, I need a rocket today. You know,
Yeah.
let's figure this out. So it's a building stepping stone of the kids to organize their thoughts.
Hmm.
I love that. All
Yep.
right. So do you have a date set for this rocket launch?
Oh my goodness. I don't have an official date. I do know that through the certification I was doing, we are going to be going to the Girl Scouts STEM Center in Peninsula.
Oh, I didn't know there was such a thing.
Oh, that's brand new. It's wonderful. So we went as like a field trip for my class. And I called up the one teacher. I said, we need to go. We need to figure out a way and we need to go. So, um, we are taking all of the freshmen over 2 different days, the first week of May.
Okay.
Um, and they are going to be, doing the star related things. They have an observatory thing there, the
Oh,
telescope,
wow.
but program related to figuring out distance and that technical component. And then they are also designing their mission patches, which
Nice.
is going to be really cute. But understanding how symbolism can be important and why it's important for something like NASA and what those patches mean. So then within their group, they can say, what is our patch? What was our goal and what are the symbols to make our patch unique? And we can actually print them and then stick them on their rocket or whatever. So it's something tangible and meaningful, but I wanted to expose them to that as well.
I love that. That's so much fun.
I know I'm excited. This field trips are not fun to plan, but
No.
I'm hoping, fingers crossed. I did receive a couple of grants through the school for this, so I'm hoping that it won't financially impact the families all that much. So getting down to Peninsula is the hard part.
I am going to make a suggestion. Hold on to those patches. And then when they graduate, actually make patches they could put on their letterman's coat or
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah,
they would go, oh, that's from the rocket. That would be awesome.
that would be
Anyway,
cool.
that would be
Yeah.
cool. So,
So it'll be sometime in May.
okay.
Then when we launch them, and then the end goal is not only just the launch, but also they have to be able to collect data from that launch and present. So we want to have some sort of presentation to parents or outsiders or whomever to come and see all of the work that they've done within their group. So have sort of like a trifold display. It's kind of like a science fair, but
Hmm.
this is what we've done. And and display it because it's not shouldn't just be within our four walls,
Right.
right? So what can we share out with everybody else?
I love that. Bring in NASA, bring in any rocket scientist that lives in the area, bring in alumni. You'll have the whole thing. That's
Mhm.
amazing. So, talk to me about the benefit of doing this process to the curriculum. You know,
Um,
like you said, this is not usually done easily. We had three meetings plus all the work you did in between, which I know was extensive, but you made it work within a summer, really, to get
right.
everything together. So
Mhm.
talk about the benefit of this process.
Well, uh, it really makes you be very purposeful about what it is that you are doing, right? Not that I wasn't purposeful before as a teacher, but why am I spending this time on this particular concept? Or it makes you reevaluate um, really how things flow. I think in years past, even in my other courses, if I didn't get to something, well, I just didn't have time to get to X, Y, or Z. But that's not really an excuse, right? So the benefit is really maximizing my time in the classroom and making sure that they get the content that they're supposed to get within that course, but having it be meaningful and authentic. Um, and this gave me the freedom to be able to design something that the students hopefully will buy into and become invested in, rather than just another course they have to take. Um,
And I think that that kind of capstone is going to generate enthusiasm for the next group because you can then take all these eighth graders that are coming in for the tour and said, look what you get to do as a freshman. You know, that's a big deal to have those end big activities is something they look forward to. So I think
right.
there's a huge benefit not only for your class, but also for marketing your school to open yourselves up to more science people. You know, it's a good
Right.
thing. Um, One of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking is we haven't really touched on the physical look of this map that you mentioned. It's a one pager. It's done in landscape. I'm just going to describe it a little. There's basically four columns.
Hmm.
There's a picture that describes, sort of symbolizes what's going on during that time frame, and then you tell the story. You know, you talk about your learning intention. You talk about, what you're actually going to be doing and how this all leads to that rocket launch. So
Right.
it from your traditional map, which you have at Elyria
Hmm.
Catholic, you have maps
Yeah.
everywhere. Those usually range 10 to 12 pages, maybe more. And
Yeah.
if you look at the Ohio State curriculum, depending on what subject, it could be multiple, 10, 20, 30 pages long. This is one page.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
have you been able to share that with somebody outside of the group of three that they can sort of see what you're doing other than it?
Aside from admin, probably.
And what was admin's reaction to what you did?
I mean, they're very enthusiastic about what these changes are and where we're headed. I think they really enjoy seeing the thinking outside the box and more student-centered approach than a traditional
Right.
course might be. Part of it is my leeriness to to branch out with something that is like, this may or may not work. But it even within the department, it's an interesting conglomeration of individuals who may or may not be receptive because in order to really do this and to do it right, you have to be open to what this is calling you to do, the work involved, and um, it's well worth it. But you have to be willing to sit there and do it, and maybe have to go outside of your own comfort zone. Um, but I think when you see what it is in action that makes that kind of okay, we did it for a reason and it was good and now let's connect it in. And so, I'm hoping that this does not end within physical science. We have talks of a capstone project building off of this one for biology, which is really fun. They launch their rockets, land on a star, and oh, look, there's life. And now we have to figure out, um, those little pieces and parts, and it'll be really cool if I can get this to go through. Not necessarily that trajectory, but something along those lines. Let's look at this in a different way. It's not just anatomy and physiology. It's the story of the human body, and how can we weave that together into a curriculum.
I was aware that you were looking at mapping other subjects before we were even done with the one that we were working on, but I didn't know you were going to tie it into the rocket as well with the
Mhm.
biology. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other piece that, you three bought in almost right away after you get the feeling of being overwhelmed to the side. You said this is much easier to visualize how it's going to work because of the simplicity of it
Mhm.
compared to the unrealistic maps that we would make that nobody ever looks at necessarily. But we have as much work in these, but it's a one-page summary basically of everything we want to
Mhm.
do. And it's a hard sell, like you said. Not everybody's going to buy in, especially since they don't have to do it.
Right.
It's so now that you've worked with this for a while, do you see changes that you're going to have to make moving forward in the map for next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always going to be something revised. If it wasn't, there would be nobody makes anything perfect the first time around, second or third. I think one of the things we noticed right off the hop is knowing that our students were going to need the foundational work, we made maybe the mistake of starting with force and motion in quarter one, and that was a hard pill to swallow with a lot of them. And so we were over our allotted days, just to make sure we didn't want to move on if this central thing was not met. So um, I think we need to take a look at maybe how we want to structure and flip-flop some of our content, because force and motion is so math heavy that
Hmm.
maybe they need to have a quarter of algebra before we get into force and motion. But lesson learned, and then we move
Right.
on for next year.
Well, and the way you
Um,
have it structured, you can just move things around
mhm.
and still make it work. Um, but it's also sort of a welcome to high school.
Right,
It,
right,
it could be that as well. But you did the right thing. And I think if you needed a little extra time and now you have your heat map, you can say, okay, where can I get some of those days back and figure this thing out?
right.
I think that makes it easier just to process that time factor.
Yes, it certainly does. And I know there will be time. I know that we will be able to shift around. We had an extra, I don't know, I don't want to say extra, but we had a larger chunk of time for things that maybe might not need that we can shift around a little bit.
Right.
So, I mean, it'll be fine and work around it. And I think that was another reason why we didn't start the actual capstone until when we did, because they didn't have that beginning stuff well enough that I didn't want to add on an extra
Right.
component at that
Right.
time. So,
Well, Well, I think that presenting it just before Christmas, even though they're not going to be focused on school, it's in the back of their mind that this is where we're headed. And whether they like it or not, they will think about it once in a while over break, just because it is such a big thing. And with you making the bigger deal out of it by going off site, that's going to just add to that whole aura of the lesson itself. It's pretty cool.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. I'm
So,
so
I
happy
mean,
right now for you.
I, yeah, talk to me in April. No, I'm just kidding. It'll be great. Overall, I think it has made this a lot easier of a transition on my part as an educator coming in, not having taught this for 10 years, and like, what am I doing? But it gave me a whole different frame to look at how I was going to approach this, and I think I mean, obviously, I think it's for the better, but so much so that I mean, I even did that with anatomy right off the hop. So,
That's the second one that started before the first one was done.
correct. Yes, but I knew I could do that because of having taught it for as long as I have, and the excitement of being able to fit everything in as it should where I hadn't been able to. So I,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that at least I did that part.
Yeah. Well,
But
and that's how this whole thing got started because I worked with your chemistry teacher before she
Mhm.
retired because there was some stoichiometry that she wasn't getting to, that she wanted to, I hope I said that right,
Yep.
that she's never gotten to in all of her years of teaching. So we did the heat map and she goes, I actually got to teach it this year. She was so
Yeah.
happy. So that's how the whole thing started, is like we can make this work. It's just a matter of we have to reinvent the process that we use in the time frame that we have, which
Right.
is always overestimated by probably 30 days. I
Yeah.
mean, what did we come up with? How many days did we actually figure were good for instruction with
It
all
was
the
not
other things?
it was not what we thought it was. And when you look back, I mean, and we're at a building where we're lucky to get 5 days uninterrupted in a week. If we're there for 5 days a week. So,
Right.
you know, it's it is what it is.
Well,
It's definitely not that total number though.
well, in this time of year, we allotted ourselves snow days because
Mhm.
they're going to happen.
Mhm.
And if you had school tomorrow, it probably wouldn't have happened. It's one of those, oh, let's just go with what we already have and we'll just make
Yeah.
it work. So, well, so you already alluded, and this is the last question I have for you. You've alluded to a lot of things that you plan on doing next in the curriculum. You talked about map testing, you talked about
Mhm.
the biology capstone, you talked about your anatomy physiology storyboard. Is there anything else you see next for your science department that going on at Elyria Catholic?
So I would really love to see this vertical alignment continue, not just from physical science into biology, but really trying to get those skills to set students up for success in some of our more challenging classes. I would like to see the enrollment in physics and AP Chem, even anatomy. I'd like to see that go up without students thinking, and these conversations we've had where they will come and say, I just it's too hard. I can't do this. No, it's not too hard. You can do this, but we need to make sure we set you up for that. Um, and so I'd like to see that expand through. And I know we are headed towards trying to STEM is a big push for us, and so or it will be. And I would like to see that kind of more integrated into the courses that we have, purposeful STEM things that can help elevate the already existing curriculum that they have. Yeah.
So you have a lot.
I have a lot, just a
Yep.
little.
Well, just the mere fact that you've implemented testing, you're doing your mapping for anatomy physiology, and you're now doing it for biology. It's like that's a decade worth of work that you're trying to do probably in the next couple months, just knowing you.
Yeah, well, I won't take credit for the biology one. I'm just a sounding board on that one, but yeah, I think you lit the fire under not just me to for excitement for this kind of thing, but also the wheels are turning for some of the others as well. Like, okay, well, this worked so well here. This makes sense. How can I bring it into this course
Yeah,
to make it make sense? Um, and I think that that should be the natural progression. Of that. But
I
yeah,
love
I
that.
don't do anything small. Just
Maybe that's why we get along so well,
yeah.
Danielle, because I feel that I'm the same way, except I can now just walk away from the building and
Yeah.
not worry about it for a while. Then you are on your work. That's
I know.
awesome. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, talk about before I sign us off here for the day?
I think we covered all of the fun with maps.
We did fun with maps. The book is called Streamlining the Curriculum.
Mhm.
Has a train on the front. It's a great book. It makes life easy when it comes to mapping, and I highly recommend it to anybody.
Is that the one that we got the Hess levels, the DOK
Yes,
level stuff? Yeah,
yes,
that was very helpful. So
yes. Actually, no, that was Hess's. That was Dr. Karen Hess's book. Um, I share too much.
yeah,
I,
no, no.
I have too many books that I share, but I will put both of those books on the screen because Dr. Hess's book is amazing. It just breaks things down very, very easily for easy to understand. And then the streamlining the curriculum book for the mapping piece is really, really good. I'm hoping
Mhm.
to get her as a guest as well, so that'd be fun.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah. So thank you for your time. I do appreciate all the work you do and the energy you bring to everything that we work on together. Hopefully, the weather holds out. I'll be there the next time we actually meet this time. But it's been great talking with you. And for those that are tuning in, as always, be kind, be professional, and find solutions. Thank you very much, Danielle.